Am I the asshole for telling my cousin I can't come to his wedding because of no child rule? My cousin is getting married at the end of August in California at a vineyard. No one in the family is in California, so to go I need to get a hotel. Me, my mom, and brother found an Airbnb that relatively close. Also, I should mention my husband is posted abroad and won't be coming. I was going to fly to the US for this. The invite came out only 3 weeks ago and we had to scramble to find a place. The issue now is that I have a 4-month-old baby who only breastfeeds and won't take a bottle. She had to drink from an open cup one time because I needed to take a driving exam, and that is the longest she has ever been away from me. They just let us know that no children under 12 are allowed. So I told them that logistically I can't come. They suggested that me and my mother go back and forth to the Airbnb to watch the baby, and I said it's just too big of a deal to fly all the way there, pay for an Airbnb, and then go back and forth during the wedding. It just doesn't seem worth it. It's a lot of effort to do all of that by myself with a small baby. The Airbnb and plane are still refundable at this point. My cousin is mad that I'm canceling as they paid per head and can't reduce the amount at this point. I said they can try and find someone else to invite. I said it's his fault that they didn't write the child rule on the invitation. He said I should not be stingy and get a babysitter. I don't know anyone in that area of California, and honestly paying for a babysitter on top of an Airbnb and flight is ridiculous to me. He says it's standard to not bring children to weddings. So am I the asshole for canceling close to the date because I can't bring my baby with me? Edits for clarity. Short notice is because bride is pregnant. I live with my husband in Germany where he's posted. Baby already has passport because she is only US citizen. Because of the shotgun nature of the wedding, the invite consisted of a graphic image without particular guest names emailed to the guests. The RSVP system also let me choose up to 3 people, so I thought that was me, my baby, and my husband. Update. Apparently about 30 people have cancelled because of this, and that's why they are complaining so much about the costs. Not the asshole. Who expects the parents of a 4-month-old to find a babysitter in a strange place at the last minute? I flew back to the USA from overseas with a 10-month-old, and that was hard enough. Along with a 4-month-old sounds daunting. Do not let your cousin bully you. Cancel everything and stay home. If your mother and brother want the Airbnb, they can cover your share, or find other accommodation. Your cousin is trying to make his bad planning your problem. How ridiculous to ask a mother to get a babysitter for a 4-month-old baby who is breastfed, in a strange city where she doesn't know anyone. Your cousin has clearly demonstrated that he is clueless. Not the asshole, by a long shot. Not the asshole, and you know this already. They have no right to be mad and complain about any costs if you weren't told about the no child rule before your RSVP'd. I'd tell them to fuck right off. What about your airline ticket? Are you able to get a refund for that? For them to change the rules is kind of bullshit when they got people booking stuff like that. Not the asshole at all. Not the asshole at all. Get your refunds while you still can. You know, if the tables were turned, he wouldn't leave his 4-month-old child behind, nor would he hire a babysitter he didn't know anything about. And #X200B. My cousin is mad that I'm canceling as they paid per head and can't reduce the amount at this point. Boo effin' who? If he couldn't be bothered to add the no child rule to the invitation, that's on him. Spend your money on something you'll actually enjoy. Not the asshole. The invite came out only 3 weeks ago. I said it's his fault that they didn't write the child rule on the invitation. Nailed it. Am I the asshole for not having room pristine for someone staying with me? An acquaintance and her daughter are couch surfing this summer because they left a toxic situation. I told her they could stay with me throughout July and August. I told her I wouldn't charge her but would love one of her handmade dresses. I felt bad for her and wanted to help. My place is a small urban 3-bedroom apartment and I have 3 kids. I told my friend she could stay in my daughter's room and I would put my daughter in the living room. I also told her we were purging the closets this summer and my daughter's room currently had a bunch of boxes in it that I had to move to storage once I finished purging and found some time to move them. My daughter has the largest bedroom in the house and it's the only available space for the boxes. My friend kept changing the date she would be coming and my daughter continued to sleep in her room. The other day she suddenly announced she would be there later that day. So I washed the floors and dusted, put the 7 boxes neatly against the wall. I didn't have time to make up the bed. I figured I would give her sheets to do it later. When she arrived, let herself in and went to the bedroom. I was in a meeting for an hour. When I went to the bedroom to say hello, she wasn't there. Nor was any of her stuff. I went to go call her and saw she texted me saying she left because the room was too messy. It caused her and her daughter stress and she wouldn't be staying with me. Am I the asshole for not presenting my couch surfing acquaintance with a pristine room to stay in? My advice is this. Unless you want someone to stay with you permanently, always leave the guest room a bit of a mess. This is especially true of people who regularly put themselves in distressing situations, coming down off of drugs, fighting with their spouses, adults being kicked out due to their narcissistic behavior, etc. Start watching the neighbor's little dogs or something while they're staying, too. Order live crickets off of the internet, put them in the house. Don't make it too comfortable, or they'll lose their gumption to get a solid job in GTFO. I've dealt with enough couch surfing tweaker drama queens in my life, so please heed my sage advice. Also, after this woman's entitled response, don't ever let her in your house again. Pat yourself on the back for dodging a bullet. Not the asshole, consider yourself lucky to have dodged a very large, ungrateful, persnickety bullet. Not the asshole. After you offering to accommodate her for basically free, minus potential dress, still agreeing despite her changing the date of her arrival, putting your daughter out of her room to give them privacy, she left? Over boxes? Her entitlement and ungratefulness is astounding. She was leaving a toxic situation, or she was the toxic situation. Not the asshole. Consider yourself lucky and that you dodged a bullet with her. Imagine actually living with her if she gets stressed so easily. Not the asshole. Beggars can't be choosers. I guess a free roof over her head for herself and her daughter wasn't that urgent. Am I the asshole for telling my parents they need to place their next kid for adoption? My parents have 4 kids already. Me, 17M, my younger sister, 13F, younger brother, 12M, and youngest sister, 10F. My parents have relied on me heavily to take care of my siblings. Started when I was still too young to do much, but they'd put them in my room if a nightmare happened, and after each sibling was 6 months old they started sharing a room with me until they were 3. Then it was getting me to prepare something to eat for my younger siblings. It was also staying home with them while mom went shopping, and over time it evolved. I help with homework. I make sure they're awake for school. I walk them to school since I don't have a car. I feed them, and most of the time I'm the one they come to if they need help with something. My parents will drop them off at birthday parties or to friends' houses. They'll take us out for family experiences but admittedly expect me to keep an eye on my siblings. My parents provide the food and house and clothes. I provide the emotional stuff. I don't love doing it, but I got so used to it that it became second nature. I'm still the person my youngest sister comes to if she has a nightmare or is afraid of anything during the night. My parents learned they were pregnant again in February. They told me and my siblings last month. It was very much talked about, like I will have the baby with me, in my room, for the jump, and should learn how to independently change diapers and stuff. I made it clear from the jump that I wasn't raising their next kid for them. I told them I had more responsibility to my 3 siblings than I should have ever had. But I wasn't going to skip my own life to raise an infant from the start. My parents were shocked. They tried to get one of my younger siblings on board, but they said no way, they didn't want to be responsible like me. My parents returned to me with the topic and asked what the fuck they're meant to do, and they never expected me to reject a sibling like this. I said I reject child raising another one of their kids. Not a sibling. But also, I'll be out of the house in 7 months. I won't be around the new sibling as much, and the relationship might not be the same. I told them I don't want the same relationship either. I don't want to be a parent to another sibling. They made it pretty clear they don't want to do the actual child raising, and they're living a nightmare over this. When the topic came up during the last week, I told them they need to place the baby for adoption since they won't have a good childhood with nobody wanting to raise them. I told my parents it would be the kindest thing to do if they refused to raise the baby themselves. My parents accused me of treating adoption flippantly, and they were sorta outraged. I would rather they place the baby for adoption than for me to step up and raise this one too. Am I the asshole? Inta. I don't know where you're located, but if you are in the USA, I'd call CPS and get them involved.
They were sorta outraged. I would rather they place the IR baby for adoption than for me to step up and raise this one too. The complete lack of self-awareness and accountability they need to think this, let alone say it, is mind-boggling.
Not the asshole, op. Plan for your escape now. Not the asshole.
When they are both out of the house, look for your important documents, birth certificate, social security card, stuff like that, so they can't keep it from you as a way of punishing you for not being their live-in nanny anymore. See if you can move in with a relative.
Get your hands on any important documents, birth certificate, and hide it.
Get a license or a non-driver ID.
I would get a job if you can and start saving. Figure out how much money you need to rent near you.
Get references lined up from teachers.
Good luck, op. Absolutely not the asshole. Not the asshole.
Abortion.
The magical word is abortion. Not the asshole. Accelerate your plan to escape and be prepared for them to do all they can to emotionally blackmail you, including using the other siblings to put pressure on you.
Am I the asshole for not ordering any food so I wouldn't have to split the bill?
I, 27M, have been a part of a small friend group, around 8 people total, basically since college.
For some background, 2 people from the group, Susan and Greg, are just absolute leeches. Going out for lunch? Expect them to order the most expensive on the menu, then feed you some sob story about their finances and then dump half the bill on you.
Last weekend, Dan, one of the people from the group, told me about a casual dinner.
I told him how if Susan or Greg were there I wouldn't be able to come.
He tells me that they would be there, but I should just put my opinions aside and come just once.
This is kind of where I might be an AH.
I agreed with him and told him I would be there.
I show up and we all get to talking. Everyone began putting in their orders. Most of them spent about $40.
There were only about 6 people there.
When it gets to Susan and Greg, they both order expensive dishes, around $200. When it was my turn to order, everyone looked at me, but I just pick up the menu and point to the $4 Miller Lite and sent the waiter away. Dan asked why I hadn't ordered anything and all I said was that I lost my appetite.
The other 2 friends got up as well to cancel their orders and just have drinks.
After the main courses came out, I saw Susan and Greg picking at their food.
The waiter then brings over the check.
Greg then grabs the waiter and asks him to split the check 6 ways.
I stand up and correct him, saying the check was to be split 3 ways.
Greg looks at me confused and asks why, since we always split the bill. I reminded him that 3 of us had not eaten any food, so we would just be paying for our drinks. So basically at the end of the night, Dan, who probably only ate around $50 worth of food, was stuck with a $146.98 check at the end. Yes, I remember the exact number.
I swear I saw his jaw drop when he picked that receipt up. I slid a $10 towards the check, said goodbye everyone, and walked out.
The next morning, I found my phone full of texts from Greg and Susan telling me I was an asshole for not ordering any food and forcing them to pay more than they had accounted for. I honestly laughed because the stakes alone were more than what they had paid, but to each their own, right?
I also got a lot of messages from Dan saying that I could have just not came instead of pulling that stunt and getting him stuck with an outrageous bill. Edit. At this restaurant, the bar is separate, so drinks are on a separate bill, if that makes sense. And if anyone is concerned about leaving a tip, I live in Australia. Edit 2. Hey guys, just wanted to clarify some things.
1. 90% of restaurants where I live, they don't do separate checks and might separate the bill for you if you're lucky.
By the way,
this post is in AUD, so if you want the amounts in USD, you have to convert it.
2.
Dan could have easily asked Greg and Susan to transfer him the money if he wanted, but he's always been about helping them through their financial hardship, even though they're just using him, and keeps dragging me into it.
I admit what I did was immature, but I'm tired of being forced to play along.
It's his money, and if he wants to spend it on them, that's fine, but I'm not paying for them.
3. Also, Dan's a really good friend of mine, albeit blind AF. I was just trying to get him to see what kind of people he was helping. I will admit it was a tad bit petty. 4.
Thank you for the gold.
Not the asshole.
Is it not possible to ask the waiter for separate checks, i.e., everyone gets their own check for what they ordered, ahead of time? While some people think this is a little tacky, it's not anywhere near as tacky as ordering a meal that costs 5 times as much as anyone else's, and expecting them to cover it.
Even if you were actually not hungry, I would still say not the asshole.
They clearly premeditated this whole event and expected others to take the financial fall for their lifestyle. Hope Dan opens his eyes, but right now, they seem superglued shut. Good for you though.
Not the asshole. I thought what you did was brilliant.
You started by saying you would not attend if the leeches were there. Your friend Dan wanted you to come anyway, so you did, but on your own terms. The moment you ordered only a beer, that was a signal that every adult at the restaurant should have recognized, especially because the bar bill is separate from the food, that you were not eating. 2 others were not eating, thus obviously not splitting a bill for dinner.
I bet Dan will not be so quick to include Susan and Greg again. Not the asshole.
The next morning, I found my phone full of texts from Greg and Susan telling me I was an asshole for not ordering any food and forcing them to pay more than they had accounted for. Dan was the one who told you to put your opinions aside and just come, right?
Well handled. Your friends must have thought so too because they followed suit.
Dan got caught out. What I'm wondering though is why any of you continue socializing, being friends with people who not only constantly leech off you but openly admit to doing so.
I should just put my opinions aside and come just once. I could have just not came instead of pulling that stunt and getting him stuck with an outrageous bill.
Dan needs to make up his mind, law.
What he means is, you should have come and paid for Susan and Greg's food even though you were clear from the jump that you wouldn't.
Not the asshole, but time to stop hanging out with these people.
Not the asshole. My only quibble with this is you could have ordered an Aussie beer instead of an American beer. Is a Cooper's not good enough for you?
D. But I don't drink beer, so what the hell do I know? _Sue_.